morning, everybody, on July 5th, 2020. Today we have with us the exciting Drew Saunders, all the way from Arizona from Pac Global. And Pac Global is a very interesting project, and there's so many different areas to cover with Pac Global. I'm so looking forward to diving into this with Drew. Drew, good morning. I know it's 8 o'clock in the morning for you. How are you?
It's good. I'm doing good. How are you?
Not so bad, not so bad. Ross, this is your kind of project, brother. You're totally technical kind of guy, so this is your kind of project, isn't it?
I haven't dived into the programming of Masternodes, but I love the experimentation behind it into the finance side of things. I love that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Masternodes are something that we kind of getting into it a little bit before we went live, but there's something that a lot of projects try to use, or it's a very good way to start incentivizing your users of your network. And there's a lot of different ways that Masternode projects go about doing that. Me personally, it's very difficult for me sometimes to talk about Masternode projects without some individuals in the crypto community having maybe a bad stigma about them, because a lot of Masternode projects sometimes fail to have any uniqueness to them, that they are too similar to other projects. Dash, for instance, a lot of people, if not everyone in the crypto community, knows who Dash is. I'm a huge fan of Dash and their developing team. They've done a lot of good things, and they were the first to, make Masternodes, and they used Masternode project very well to grow their decentralized network for their single use case, digital cash, and they've stuck to that pretty well over the years. That's their use case. That's what they want, is a large, diverse network, decentralized. And a lot of projects try to do that too. And some have succeeded, some have failed. I would say a lot of them have failed. And so Pac Global, when we looked at Masternodes, we didn't really want to do the same thing that everyone else is doing, because what's the point in that? We want there to be use cases and innovations that come out that can be built on top of a network. That way, the value of decentralized, a network, that value gets realized more or less, more so than just the use case of digital cash. And I don't want to keep rambling, because I will, but a lot of people talk about digital cash, and almost every single cryptocurrency out there could be used one way or another as a form of a payment method. So just that alone doesn't really matter anymore. You see a lot of people comparing speeds and transaction speeds and how many megabytes in a block and all that. A lot of cryptocurrencies these days, they're pretty well up to date on what they can do and their speeds. So, we're trying to take a different approach in how we, advertise why a decentralized network matters.
Yeah. So if you had to summarize that for our viewers in a simple manner, what exactly does Pac Global do and provide as a service? What's your company built on?
Okay, so what we're doing currently is, obviously we have our payment network features, just like a lot of other different, networks. Our masternode size, there's over 9,000 masternodes across our entire network, globally distributed. That's, if I remember correctly, it's either third or fourth on the list, compared to any other blockchain project that is noticed by the community. I think Masternodes.online does a really good job of ranking them. But what we're trying to do is utilize the space and the resources that each server provides for the network. Masternodes are known for being full nodes. So basically what they do is they keep a full copy of the blockchain. Well, what they also do is they provide extra resources that aren't technically going to be maybe used now or even in a year from now, just because they're built on servers. And so what we're trying to do is we're using an IPS private network. IPFS is a private network database kind of structure with a decentralized architectural design behind it, but it's only as decentralized as how many servers there are, just like there would be for any project. It doesn't have to be just IPFS. It could be Bitcoin, for instance, just say Bitcoin. And it's only as decentralized as how many people use it, right? So IPFS, that's something that we're looking to deploy on top of our servers. That way, we've built the network. We've got 9,000 plus individuals growing the network, 9,000 plus servers being used, and all these servers all have resources that could be used for data storage. And that's something that we're going forward with, is providing a actual decentralized storage bank, really, or storage database that can be accessed by anyone. And so that's what we're aiming for. We've done a good job of building the infrastructure with IPFS, but one thing that I struggle with is the security aspect of it, not of blockchain and not of the products that we would release, but the security of who uses it and the safety behind it. Because I'm a huge supporter of freedom of speech and making sure that everyone has the freedom to their own content and their data. That's the whole point of the product that we're trying to develop behind Pac Global and using our nodes for this. But the security that I'm worried about is you always have to worry about the one person ruins it for everyone. And blockchain, right? It's basically a perfect open ledger. A lot of people use it to describe how you can, your transactions. It's open ledger. Everyone knows what happens. Nothing can be lied upon with blockchain. Well, that doesn't work just with transactions. It's also with whatever gets stored on there. So if you create an open database where literally anyone can use it and store stuff, you don't want to give them easy access to be storing illegal content. So that's the one thing that has kind of been a struggle for me, trying to figure out how far is too far when it comes to controlling what people put on a database. And so we're still figuring out some ways to do that. It's always a work in progress. That's why we do the things that we do, and we love doing the things that we do, trying to improve as best we can every day. And so as solutions present themselves, we'll start implementing them. But I think right away what we're planning on doing is just keeping it closed testing for now, just to make sure it works. And then as time moves on, we might just open it up as an enterprise kind of thing, where vetting of content gets happened by different companies and the people that they're using. We don't really know fully yet. But my main focus is making sure that the product works. Because once the product works, then you can start changing a little bit of, why you're doing it the way you're doing it. But my main goal is just growing the Masternode network for Pac Global. Masternodes get collateralized. You need 500,000 tokens to do that. And then those get attached to your own private server. So you have full access to your coins, you have full access to your private server, you have full access to really all your resources. Our main job is, we want people to realize how valuable a decentralized network is. And the number one thing I do to really express that is it's something that can't be bought. Facebook, Google, Amazon, you can't buy a decentralized network. It's impossible. All these big boys that provide these massive storage or whatever, it's some way they do have a lot of products and a lot of good products. I'm not saying anything against that, but at some point it is centralized because they have to manage everything. For us, that's something that we're trying to step around, create a better solution, because there's a lot of ways that this could be used, whether it's for data being stored on the internet or just decentralized alternatives to modern day products like YouTube, etc., that people may want to create, but they need a decentralized database. And so we want to grow that because it can't be bought. It's something that I really wish would receive more, more acknowledgement of why that's so valuable. Because the most important part and the most valuable asset to any decentralized network isn't the digital asset of any token being used on the network. It's the people. The people need to exist, and the people need to support a project for something to become decentralized in a true nature. So that's something that we're still, growing, and we're happy that our network has grown to be over 9,000 masternodes, and it's provided us that infrastructure that then we could, build on top of.
That's really exciting what you said there.
You can totally hear your passion, for sure. Like, your passion in this project is huge. Like, it's vibrating. Like, you can totally hear it. But I mean, for somebody like myself, and self-admitted, I don't know everything in blockchain. If I knew everything in blockchain, then maybe I wouldn't be doing podcasts. I don't know. But there's
but
if we back this up to talking about a masternode and a decentralized server. Okay, so if somebody's sitting in their house, they can run their own masternode off of Pac Global. Is that correct? Like, somebody can have their own masternode at their own house. Is that right?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. A lot of the people that run masternodes for Pac Global, they'll use VPSs, virtual private servers, and they'll use server providers. But yeah, you definitely could run it off your own private network, inside your home as well. Um, One thing that we're trying to do is we want to make Masternode deployment a lot simpler than what it currently is. It's not the most user-friendly thing to just run a Masternode right off the bat, especially for someone who's brand new to blockchain. And that's something that I feel not Pac Global's problem, but just the entire space's problem is a lot of the things revolving blockchain aren't the easiest to explain to someone who probably has no idea what you're talking about at the first place. So user friendliness really needs to improve across the entire space, something that we kind of keep in mind when we want to release a new product. But absolutely, if someone wants to run a Masternode from their home, they could do that. And that's something that they would then just need to make sure that they have enough resources that are going to be required to maintain an entire full copy of the blockchain.
Right.
Something that grows over time, how much space you need, just how big the blockchain is. Bitcoin's pretty large now, so you need a pretty decent server to have a full node of that. And that would be the same case as time grows on with Pac Global.
Right. So in easy terms, somebody wants to jump in and support Pac Global, and they say, yeah, okay, I'm going to run a Masternode. Like for a person, I'm a big fan of explaining and realizing what a problem is, and then having the solution to fix the problem. So that's kind of where I kind of come from, as far as, okay, this industry has a problem. It can be fixed with blockchain, and here's the blockchain or the project that fixes that problem, rather than a blockchain project creating a problem and then refixing the problem they created just to say that they have a project. It's like, so with in easy terms, if somebody is, 40 plus years old and they've obviously seen cryptocurrency and projects, they see Pac Global, what are the steps with them setting up a server? Like, a server to them is a computer. Like, to most people, they don't know what a server is.
I fully understand. I mean, the first steps really, if I want to be straight up to the point of it, is you need the collateralized coins. So you're going to have 500,000 Pac, which you can either get from exchange or just accumulate from POS. We use POS for block creation. But either way, you'll need 500,000 coins. And then once you have that, there are Masternode setup guides on our website. There are also third providers that are pretty well known that do Masternode hosting. But if someone were to do that for themselves, we have a Masternode installation guide where you just follow the steps to do that from your own home computer, from your own wallet that you download, whether it's Mac or Windows. And a lot of people will use the server provider service Vulture. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but Vulture, a lot of from Europe, they use Hetzner. If I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but server providers, and there's installation guides. So it's not too tedious, but it's just one of those things that, like you said, if I was to give this to someone, me personally, I probably wouldn't expect them to do it correctly the first time at the original instructions, like how it is. That's why we're trying to make it super easy, almost auto install. But to some point, when you're attaching software or whatever you've downloaded to another server, you're gonna have to know somewhat of what you're doing. But that's why there's a difference. You don't have to support a Masternode if you don't know how. You can still have access to all the network features and things like that. But it definitely could be a little tedious for those who are new to the space. That's something that we want to make sure that we tackle that. And we're working on products now while it releases that tackle things that are a little annoying for people, even annoying for people that are been in the crypto space forever. For instance, we released our application that we just simply called the Pac app. And what we did was we kind of used Cash App. If you're familiar with the Cash App application by Square, we use that as our model of basically user friendliness and how easy it is, because I have grandparents that use the Cash App. I have family. Everyone knows the Cash App. Everyone's familiar with how it works and its interface. And one thing that I really enjoyed about it was their tag system, where you could use just to tag your name. There's a database of names that's connected to your accounts. You don't need to know even just someone's phone number. That's 10 digits. Okay. But in Bitcoin or in cryptocurrency, you have an extremely long address that I've yet to find someone who is successfully able to remember it, then tell it to someone, and then that person remember it. It's kind of annoying. You need to copy it or send them an email or send them a text. You have to. With Pac app or the Cash app, same similarities. We use the Pac app database to where now people can send and receive cryptocurrencies just with their name that they created. So it'd be, for instance, $ and then whatever, Drew Saunders or something like that. And that's just one of the little things that we wanted to do to make it easier for anyone to pick up and just know how to use it, because it's so similar to something that they've used before, like email.
It's so powerful.
I mean, I don't think that's a little thing. Like, I think that was totally understated. Like first of all, like Cash App Canadians, I don't think really use Cash App. In fact, I don't even know if the service is available in Canada, Cash App.
That's true. I think it's a US only thing.
Yeah, I think it is, and Venmo too. So we don't use a lot of those services up here. We're still, whatever. We're still using PayPal. But when you said, like, it's called Pac ID, isn't it? Or Pac Tag?
Pac app. And then the naming system we use is Pac Tag.
Pac Tag, yeah, that's right. So yeah, you understated that, because that's huge. I used an app once. I have an app too that I can just send stable coin just by name. I just send it to a contact. Ross has the same app. I just punch in it, like, just whatever, send Ross this. That you totally understated it, because that's a massive service, and that's going to be a massive service in crypto where you can just send a contact, because it's like when you're trying to onboard somebody into crypto or blockchain and you're telling them about this and that, and yet they're done. Like, they lose it right as soon as you show them how to send. They're like, okay, you know what? My brain already memorizes a million things in life, like all my passwords and everything else. Now I have to remember
exactly.
It's brutal.
It's almost as if, in reality, if they were to really look at it, Bitcoin and a lot of different cryptocurrencies in their wallets, a lot of them are very similar to features that we use every day. Like, for instance, when we go on the internet and we type in a web browser, all that goofy lines that pop up, or all those random numbers and letters that pop up at the top, that's an address for a network that we use on the internet. People don't care how it works. They just know that it works and it's easy. That's the same thing that I use when I'm trying to explain to someone, why it's important that it needs to be so easy you don't know how it works, is like a debit card. I have zero clue of how, when I slide my debit card, how does my money come from my bank account to the store? I don't know the exact process of how it happens. I just know it works, and I was able to leave with whatever product I was buying. That's the same kind of thing that needs to happen with in the cryptocurrency space for those that want to use their network as a payment service. It needs to be so easy that it's normal. It's not something that you have to change your entire lifestyle just to use it. And I think that's coming. Bitcoin and those larger projects are definitely going to lead the way with people using it, being more comfortable in using it. But along the way, I think it's important that we have minds working and preparing on better ways to get more people on how to use it, and making it easy for not just those who are comfortable being tech wizards, but also those that are, wanting to be using these products that are mainstream, those that are, and not only that, but it's safer. It really is. Just talking about Bitcoin only, it's extremely safe, and people just don't really know that yet. They don't know why it's so safe and why it's such an advantage. And I think a lot of the reasons behind that is because they get scared of wanting to learn something new that may seem too tech for them, or too difficult to understand, that they just going to stick with what they're used to. And so, you are right that using a tag system, it definitely, it's something that people can use, and it's a lot big of an improvement over, setting a 40 address long address.
Well, it's like this for me. I mean, for myself, I'm above 40. I want simplicity. When I go into my house, I don't have to remember a code on a lock to get into the door of my house. I use a key.
Yeah.
That's simplicity. Right now, in my opinion, cryptocurrency and blockchain is like having a code on your house door. Every time we're trying to get into
Yeah.
crypto, and we have to remember a code to get into our own house. When really, why don't we just go get the key and turn the key and get into
Yeah,
our
it's
house?
almost backwards of how it normally is
Well,
nowadays. Is not
it is
originally
it
it's
is
super
backwards.
hard and you have to like take a lot of steps to make it easy instead of it being easy with all these features that then you can add if you want. You know,
It
those, yeah.
Totally. It's totally like that. It's like I remember the days of going into a bank and you actually had to fill out a little form for a deposit.
Yeah.
You had to stand in line to fill a deposit form out. And then after you're done filling out the form, you stand in line again to
Hmm.
get to the teller to give them the form. And then that, so they obviously they realize that that's not going to work for any kind of adoption. And then they start coming out with easier and easier and easier and easier. And then with trading, you can trade on your phone now, on your app now.
Oh
So
yeah.
realistically, for us to get any kind of adoption or mass awareness of crypto or mass use of digital payments, we need to really simplify things, and we need to simplify for everybody, not just us in the space, not to simplify for us that we're
Hmm.
talking to each other. And when we talk to each other, it seems simple. We need to simplify it for, um, I don't know, for the lack of a better term, somebody that's just not knowledgeable at all. Why do they need to use it? And like you said, tap the debit card and that's it. They don't need to, man, I'll tell
You
you,
don't need to know how it works. You just need to
no,
know that it works and it's reliable.
if you had to type in 17 or 20 digits into your ATM machine to get out money, I'm not too sure how many people would be using ATM machines.
Oh yeah, there's no way.
So
Exactly. I mean, you don't have to type in the long codes to access the ATM network. You just access your personal account. Super
that's right.
easy.
The long codes are done by the bank internally that we never see anyway.
Exactly.
But
So
we've
there's a
been
fine line that you have to keep then, right? Because if you do it exactly how the banks do it, you're just creating another bank and
right,
it has all its problems. So
right.
I definitely understand, like, especially when when I was discussing IPFS and the issues and the problems that we're trying to solve and stuff like that, it's extremely hard to keep a balance. Like, what is too centralized,
Hmm.
and then what is the vision you want? Because you could create something extremely decentralized, extremely private, but it may not be the easiest thing to use because it's built for those specific type of people that want, that level of security, that level of privacy. And but for mass adoption and usage, you got to have a fine line to where, maybe your platform is somewhat centralized to where you're able to provide some services, but the network layout and how the beef of the network actually works needs to stay decentralized. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of those safety, things that you can tout about.
Right. So your pack tag, is that proprietary to you guys then? You guys designed it and
Yeah, so we designed it. We did trademark it. It's not we didn't take a database from anyone, so it's purely ours. It's unique. One thing that we did want to do is we wanted to add support over time for different currencies.
right.
And so basically, the most centralized part of that application is the database that contains people's names, not their full names, not their
Mm,
information, but their address that they select
mm,
that they want to use for receiving, and then the name that they
mm,
choose. So only an address is saved, which I think is important because a lot of people are worried about whether their personal
mm.
data is saved or if it's private, things like that. I even have to worry about that. And so when you figure out a way to do it without really breaking anyone's privacy, to me that's important because you're recognizing that yes, privacy is an issue in the world for a lot of different applications, not just blockchain. And us being able to do that, it was good for good for us to be able to work on that and make it work and not have to worry about other issues pop up.
Yeah, obviously privacy is a big I think it's relevant now, but I think as we move forward, it's going to become more relevant for sure. But the reason I asked if it was proprietary, so is it open source? Can another project now use your pack tag into their into their project?
Currently, no. No,
Wow. Right.
it's not open source for the application itself.
Right.
That was a decision agreed upon not only by us, but also the developer involved. He's on our team as well, but you just wanted to make sure that it wasn't something that got overlooked as a Pac Global achievement. We've been open to, I don't want to say the word list because that's not what we're going after. We're not going after to start charging people to list them to be on the app. But we've been trying to figure out ways to support multiple blockchain networks and tie the names together. So in a way, what we could create is a non-custodial wallet with the Pac tag feature to be supported across multiple chains and multiple projects.
Yeah, because for me, it's important that you get, it's your development. So of course, if other blockchains and projects use that Pac tag, it's listed in their paper. It's listed at, they list it and it's known that they've used that. But my brain is obviously going towards exchanges here because I'm thinking, why? Like this Pac tag can be used in a lot of different applications, and a lot of different projects can use this, like from exchanges to marketplaces to, to digital digital payment transfer. So that's a huge. Ross, what do you think? You probably love that, eh?
I think it's fascinating how you can empower people and, like you said, incentivize them to secure a network such as Pac Global. How do you feel, Drew, between, for example, like Facebook Libra's design, where they have, say, 28 members that they bring in to secure their network versus a Masternode network where it can just grow and grow and grow with their decentralization?
I think you have pros and cons.
Pros and cons.
I can't talk. Pros and cons for both situations. Sorry, I guess it is early. Pros and cons for both situations, because when you look at Facebook, that they have the backing. They have the company's supports. They have the money to do what they say that they want to do. And then, if anyone knows Facebook, that they're going to do something that's probably going to irritate the public about it. But either way, they're going to make a product, right? And it's probably going to work, and it's probably going to be great. It's probably going to work for what they want it to do. The only issue I have with that is when you start comparing alternative ways to accomplish the same goal is, if you do a decentralized approach on it, there are definitely pros and cons to that too, because you need people to decide that your project or your network is something that they want to support. There needs to be a reason to do it. You could have the best product in the world, best blockchain network in the world, fastest, whatever, it has all these different applications and use cases for it. The only way it's going to grow is if people use it. You could have a decentralized architectural design, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you have the best decentralized network designed ever. You need the people for that to work. Otherwise, it's only as decentralized as it is big. So, with Facebook, they got the backing, that they're going to obviously have some centralized aspect of their product, because they're going to be linking it to banks. They're going to be making it, basically what they say is they want to make it as simple as possible, blockchain for the people, but Facebook Libra, and they will do some good things. They will do some things that are probably against the original blockchain standards, how things are open source, how things are ran by the community. I don't see that happening with Facebook Libra. They're going to be more controlling on that aspect, in my opinion, but it doesn't exist, so I can't say for sure yet. They're still working on it. But with a decentralized Masternode network, you're fully, whoever's running a project and using, I call it network incentive, the Masternodes provide network. So if you're using network incentive, you're automatically, already including the community in your network. There's going to be some things that are going to pop up, features that they want added, or features that they feel are too excessive, that isn't really needed for the network. If you open it up and you give it to the Masternode layer of the network and the people, they're gonna give you the information on how they want the network to work. They're gonna give you exactly, they're already choosing to use the network, so they're gonna be more open to helping you improve it, more open to giving you advice and different opinions on what to do next, on maybe who to branch out to. And, in this space, you have to remember, not everyone is an expert, even though a lot of people feel that they are an expert on their own project that they want to, support. But at the end of the day, the entire crypto community, that is like one of the best communities I've ever, been introduced to, because not only is everyone passionate about whatever they want to be passionate about, but they're very open to learn about other things, and then they adapt. Whether it's a project adapting to a code development update in their software to where they now produce it for their project, but they're very adaptive and they're very open to different ideas, as long as it's sticking true to the fundamentals of really Bitcoin and blockchain. And so I think Facebook's going to break a lot of those original fundamentals. Something that we want to try and stick closer to, especially when we're saying we're trying to build decentralized storage networks. We want to stay to that. We don't want to go to the point where it's going down a centralized path. And I think Masternodes is a very good way to start that, because you're already saying, hey, the control of this network isn't going to be controlled by our project. Full nodes are going to be supported and controlled by literally anyone who wants to do it.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating when you have your network secured by complete strangers, completely anonymous. You can track maybe IP addresses, but it doesn't matter. Once you have 9,000 nodes, like you mentioned, it's irrelevant who it is, because it's so wide and such a massive expense. But then when I look at Facebook Libra, when they had 28 partners, then all of a sudden, boom, 4 of them drop off the list. It's like, whoa, there goes 15% of your network.
Exactly. Right.
That's sort of scary, but at the same time, I see the value in that from their perspective. But it's almost like you see it. It's like, what a corporate strategy they're putting together. Whereas people seem to be, with our mindset, we seem to be steering away from that. For example, Facebook Libra, they're going to be a stable coin, but most masternodes are tradable and have fluctuating value. Like, these dynamics are going to be fascinating to compare over time. Do you see support in other masternodes? Like you mentioned Dash already. Do you see other things that you kind of see features that you really like and you want to layer into Pac Node and to Pac Global in the future?
A lot of the features that I've noticed that are interested, that are being supported by Masternode projects, to be honest, a lot of the features that I see that people are focusing on are privacy, different ways that they want to incorporate private transactions and things like that. I see a lot of the value of private transactions. I have nothing against them. The only thing that I don't want to say struggle with, but it really is there's a difference between what you're going to get away with and then what's going to be allowed. And I think governments are going to have a big play when it comes to private transactions, even though I agreed and I feel that they're overstepping when it comes to things like that, because the number one private transaction currency in the world is paper cash, which is government released. So paper cash is used for a lot of the legal activity that happens, not only in the US, but just across the globe. And, some of the features that I've seen added have increased privacy or increased the amount of, features that you can do when it comes to privacy. And we haven't really been focused on them yet. A lot of them, what we've been mainly focused on is sorry, I have a dog, is products, attaching to the network. So if there's other, features that come out there that are, across the Masternode field, we definitely look into them. I mean, the first thing that we did when we started Pac Global was we actually became the first network to be deterministic masternodes using POS for block creation. So that's something that we thought was extremely valuable and we went after. And as more things, show themselves, then we'll definitely, look into them too.
Do you guys use, there's a Masternode website, Vault. You guys are on Vault, right?
I believe we are. I don't know how many are actually on there, but I know that I think it's at least listed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I happen to know a little bit about him, that gentleman. So I talk to him every so often. So, I mean, for a Masternode, for somebody that's not as knowledgeable to set up your own, you can actually just go there and they have it. They have your Masternode already there on their platform. So And
Oh,
he's
absolutely. I mean,
also into charity too. Like he's huge into charity as well. So
yeah, a lot of those Masternode providers do a really good job of, or I should say Masternode hosting providers do a
mm,
really good job of making it easy for really anyone. I've seen ones to the point of really it was, click a button and you're good to go, which is
yeah.
awesome. The only thing that I go up and down against when it comes to Masternode hosting providers is just some of them do it the right way, some of them do it the wrong way, where it's money hungry, where
Mm,
you'll find a bunch of different blockchain networks being supported by the same VPS server, and
mm,
there's a lot of security risks to that. Not only is it really the cheap route, in my opinion, to do something, because you're not really dedicating any resources, you're basically cloud sharing blockchain networks, but it opens up a lot of possibilities, such as if one chain is, I guess, infected, you could say, with a virus or something that's going on. You've seen a lot of unfortunate events where developers code scamming things into their wallets, and where a lot of different POS staking websites have been hacked that way. So there's a lot of security risks, in my opinion, but there's a lot of companies out there that do it the right way and do a really good job of making it easy for people to be able to run their nodes.
well, we definitely know what happens when one or two people or one person causes a virus, how many people it can affect.
Oh yeah, oh
It's
yeah,
no different than what we're dealing. Like you mentioned, like Facebook Libra. I, I mean, I believe that privacy is our right, and for myself, I
hmm
believe that privacy. Listen, at the end of the day, I can take paper cash, walk down the street, and I can give it to a person of my choice and walk
yeah,
away. I can go literally give $20 to a person of my choice anywhere that I run into, anywhere in a mall, on the street, on the corner, whatever I want to do. I can walk up to that person, give them $20 and walk away.
yeah.
That I believe that should be allowed in cryptocurrency as well. That's privacy as a choice. The
Oh yeah, I
government,
believe I believe
I
privacy
mean,
is
man, like you
100% your
said it,
human choice.
Yeah.
but Facebook is absolutely a perfectly situated company for moving forward blockchain. They've literally become a powerhouse of information because we opted to give them our information. Now they're taking our
Yeah,
information that we gave them and they're going to design a cryptocurrency or a blockchain and then recharge us for that use of that blockchain that we supplied them our information. They're
yeah.
actually they're making it's like they've made money twice almost. Like it's like they're perfectly situated for blockchain. Absolutely they are. And I can't they're going to bring blockchain out to the forefront for sure, but I hope people do their own research and figure out what blockchain they support and why they support it with 7,000 projects out there.
Yeah.
Again, what's the problem, and does a blockchain project fix that existing problem?
hmm
I like Pac Global. You guys do a lot of charity stuff too, which I'm excited about. I love charity.
Yeah, yeah. We've actually been involved with a lot of different charity initiatives since, I'd say, before 2018, before Pac Global as an LLC and management of the current chain even existed.
Mm-hmm.
Not only just the top people in the organization or those that are most active, but our community's done a really good job of supporting different things that we put together. One of our most recent one, we've actually been tweeting about it the last couple of days, is agroforestry.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to really bring a breath of fresh air to a lot of the bad news that we see.
Mm.
A lot of the bad news just everywhere throughout the globe, whether it's the virus or whether it's different opinions on different political matters going on. A lot of people have been busy with a lot of just negativity or a lot of just stressful environments when it comes to just discussing things like that. And so, getting involved in charity, it really puts your mind at the right perspective of what actually matters. Really, if you really put down to it, making sure people have food, making sure people have the availability to, get access to food, first of all. And then, we have a lot of partners that have come along to help us, make some of those initiatives come true. And a lot of places in the world that, to be honest, I didn't think that we would get to, just because it doesn't seem real for someone from Arizona that, oh yeah, we're gonna make this initiative in Nigeria to help clean up their school grounds, pick up the trash, build some farmlands. Like, oh yeah, it sounds awesome. For that to actually happen, it's something that you're just like, wow, I can't believe we actually got support from people to do something thousands of miles away from where I'm at, and it was successful. And you see all these different community members involved with it, these different volunteers involved. And Robin Mathis, he's basically our charity liaison. I mean, he does everything for that. And he's done a very good job of getting all those things together and making sure that we focus on, like you said, like a problem. He's very close to the Venezuela Colombian border. And that was one of the areas that we were focusing on first, was because, Venezuela, basically their currency went to zero. I mean, it was so bad. I saw people using paper bills to make products over than using it to spend it, because it cost more to buy what you needed instead of just using the paper, from the currency. And so we focused on that, trying to do airdrops, trying to get currency into people's hands, talk to different partnering opportunities, and trying to tie to SMS. This was before Pac App, and trying to do SMS transactions, things like that. And because that was an area of the world where, in reality of the situation, the government failed them. Government failed them for what national currency that they distributed for use, and it doesn't work anymore. So I mean, it's really, I can't really imagine it without experiencing it for myself, but it's like you wake up the next day and the US dollar is worth actually zero. Like, if that really happened, it doesn't seem likely for us to say that and not actually to happen tomorrow, but for them it did. That's actually what happened in Venezuela, is their money just became worthless. So there's a lot of different projects that have been focused in on that area. And it's not only the money part of it, though. That's what we've realized, instead of us focusing on, fast transactions, no banks, everyone wants to say that and everyone wants to do that. That's why we're like, okay, well, what's another way that we can help, humans and people? Well, we need to eat. We need, food. We need clothing, things like that. And we need not only to find people that'll help us do that for them, but then also show them how to do that for themselves. That whole thing of, teach a man to fish, they can, eat forever kind of thing. And so that's kind of like what we're doing, is we're combining, our efforts and where we can with blockchain and the things that we have that we can actually get in front of people and have them use, where it's easy. Like, we've done QR code paper wallets, things like that, airdrops, where, has X amount of pack and they can take it to located merchants around the area and where they will accept it. Things like food and whatever they might have at their stall. But then also just the agroforestry thing that we've been working on recently has been actually pretty amazing. Just the amount of response that we've gotten from that, and just taking off, getting the work done in general, just in different parts of the world. It's been mind blowing. Robin's done a great job of that.
Is it empowering to work with charities like your charities that you've built, where like your donation page on your website, it gives so many different options that I think other charities miss. Like, you've got MasterCard, PayPal, Visa, Litecoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Pac Global, and Dogecoin, where anyone on the planet that's going to make a donation, that's an ease of donation right there for anything.
Oh yeah, a lot of different methods.
Does that make it easier for you to actually benefit people and have these funds, move to the areas you need to move them to?
It does, because when we kept it to just Pac Global, you have to think about, okay, you received this donation and you want it to go towards the cause that you want it to go to, but you also don't want it to be where you're affecting your market so bad that the only thing that's happening on your markets is basically sell orders because their donations going towards charity. And especially for new, a lot of the blockchain projects, I call them basically startups, because it's really how they start. It becomes difficult when you create a use case that also fights against your growth, and not really your growth. I shouldn't say growth, but just your market activity, things like that. We don't really focus on our market activity. That's third-party exchanges. It's up to whoever wants to sell, whoever wants to buy, whatever. but it's made it easier as far as us being able to accept, other means of payment. That way, getting that money to where it needs to go is a lot easier. Bitcoin, has a lot of different places where you can liquidate it for cash. Pac Global, for instance, or a lot of the altcoins, it's a little more difficult to get from cash to Pac or Pac back to cash, just because you have to either go through Bitcoin or one of those other more liquid, cryptocurrencies in the first place just to get there. I think that's one thing that slows down a lot of projects, not just ours. Just the onboarding process can sometimes be annoying when you explain to them, okay, you need to make you got to go to Coinbase, you got to go to this exchange, and then we're listed here, and then you got to, it just gets super annoying. So, making it open to where you have all these different payment methods has just made it a lot simpler.
Yeah, that's empowering. I like to hear that.
Yeah.
How do you feel about, when people are developing masternodes outside of Pac Global? We see a lot of times where they'll just launch something, no community. They just there's just a handful of developers in there where, they're really testing the waters. They want to, it's really something you see where it's almost premature to the development they should have, versus, Pac Global, you have such a large community. What sort of empowerment does that give to people who are involved with Pac Global?
Right away, I mean, it gets eyes on what you do. It gets, you get the good and the bad opinions. You get the good and the bad, comments on not only products, but maybe your communications and how you're, getting your products across. One thing that we talk about in our meetings together as a team is, when we release things that, we feel are good products for our network, or a charity initiative or a partnership, whatever, we want to make sure that we're doing things, obviously because we feel it's the best direction to go on. We're open to the fact that some decisions we make may not be agreed on by everyone, but it's better than being agreed on by no one, because no one knows what you're doing. You have that community that, at least follows what you're doing. Good or bad results of whatever product you release, or whatever exchange you decide to list on, whatever partnership you decide to announce, you get the feedback. And, us going from, there was an old management years back to now, we definitely did have that time period where we had to put out a lot of fires that we didn't rightfully deserve, because it was completely different scenarios and different management teams over the years. But, as time has gone on, there has been multitude of times where, something has come up where originally, people were calling it FUD or whatever. People will get very defensive about if someone says something bad about your project. But in reality, if you step back and look at it, it's feedback that you can really use and put it towards, whatever you're going to do next. And I'd like to think that a lot of the feedback that we've gotten were just not just from Pac Global community, but blockchain in general. That's why we did the Pac app the way we did it, with making it user friendly, because people spoke about how unuser friendly regular addresses are. So if you don't have that community that's able to give you that input and that feedback, I think it really puts a stress on your creativity, because then you're just relying on yourself, and people are the largest asset on the planet. So, I mean, I'm blessed to have a, community that's there. Sometimes it may get annoying for me personally, admittedly, that, might be met with criticism a little too often, or maybe you just feel that way when you release a product and you see any criticism, you're like, no, that's my baby, But in reality, it's a good thing. We've learned to accept it as, learning and growing pains, and it's a lot more better to have that than not to have it, for sure.
That's true. There's so many other platforms there and other programs that people could use, and they wouldn't get the feedback, and they wouldn't get the adoption, and they wouldn't grow their community. It's extremely difficult.
How I look at criticism is when a person's on Twitter and they tweet something that is negative or seems like they're lashing out, they're reading your tweet in the current mood that they're in. So if that person's not centered at that moment in their life and they read your tweet and they're not centered, they're going to tweet something that's equally not as centered. So I always went for myself when people criticize on Twitter, I think to myself, you know what? That's their space that they're in right now. That's not up to me to control their mental mind space at that moment. And typically I just don't even respond because I want them to, they've got to work through their own mind space at that moment. And if I do respond, I usually respond with kindness, because it's like, you can't really reply back to kindness in a negative way, because if you do, it's actually kind of making you look worse. So, and responding with kindness actually kind of might snap them out of it at that exact moment. It might just get them out of that exact space. But Twitter's actually really horrible for any kind of constructive criticism typically. But
That's what you want.
I think you're taking on, I mean, you've taken on a really big task, Drew, for sure. Like, this is what you're doing full time, right?
Yeah, it didn't start out that way, but as more and more, things start adding on, and you start adding to your passion for a project, or just you get so attached to something, it's definitely turned into my full-time gig. So, take it as it will, but now being home all the time doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess we work harder when we're from our house. That's for sure. I mean, we're harder on ourselves, I think, when we are at our house. But
yeah,
it's Ross himself. This is what he does full time too, is blockchain stuff and crypto related stuff too. So, and then myself, not quite, but I have a huge admiration for people that are working cryptocurrency full time and not just saying that they're working it full time, but actually living it and working it every day to make something better. So,
it was definitely, I guess like a trust fall.
Yeah.
That if you're going to make this your full-time thing, first of all, you got to be able to say, like, I actually do that. But then once you finally are, it's definitely a trust fall to make sure, is this going to, be something that I can rely off of? And the reason why I really made that choice is because you can't take a project anywhere if you're not really if you're not putting your full-time effort into it. I guess you could, but I don't know what kind of speed you expect to grow at when you yourself aren't really putting that full dedication that you're wanting from it, So that was one of the main reasons why I decided to do that, because I needed to really put my feet in the shoes and make sure that, I do put the full-time effort that I say I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you practice what you preach, for sure. I mean, you've brought on some strong team members for sure. I think you brought on Sam, and then of course, as we know, David G. Of course, we all know our brother David G. as the CMO. So you've brought on some really strong team members to help you move forward for sure. So
look, I just got Sam's book in the mail yesterday.
Hey, there you go.
Awesome. That a boy.
It's on Amazon. Good pickup. I haven't jumped into it yet. I'm gonna take a look at it today.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
She's remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
That girl.
Yeah, she definitely is. And David too. I mean, I've known David for a while, just because of Twitter, crypto communities, things like that.
Yeah.
And we've been talking probably greater amount of the last year, just hit and miss stuff. We actually talked about Ripple, believe it or not, quite a bit in our DMs. Just, hey, what do you think's going on with this? Different partnerships they announced, stuff like that. And over the years, I've noticed that David and Sam, they're in it for what they're in it for, and that's to be part of this crypto community. They don't pretend to be experts. They don't pretend to know everything, but they've been in the community, and they listen and they interact with people. And you see a lot of those Twitter accounts that you can tell what they're there for. It's either for the follower numbers or the Bitcoin giveaways or whatever. But then you can finally see the people that are here for the space and they want to educate people. Sam with her book, David taking an interest in all these different projects across the network, the network of different projects that exist, and finding the good out of everything, really, and just connecting people. And that's what we felt that they would be a really good addition to us, because we're not any huge project that has the I guess the right to look down on anyone or say that we're better than anyone or anything like that, And they, those two people were just a great addition to our team, along with Oz Sultan. He's been a very good addition to our team too. He's
I love that guy.
very well networked, super great speaker, able to connect with anyone really. And he's involved with a lot of initiatives in Harlem, over in New York, and that immediately ticked a lot of boxes for us. That hey, we can work together on a lot of things, and so far it's been a blessing. I mean, they've been super active in our team, taking the lead in a lot of things that if they weren't here, in reality it was the same individuals that had to do it, or else it didn't get done. And without us even having to ask them or do anything, they've really taken the reins upon themselves and steered this project in nothing but a good direction. So I'm happy that they're involved.
Yeah, they're good people. Absolutely. And I find, when you say, when you're not in a position to kind of, look down on anybody, even, I'm blessed enough to be obviously part of Verge, and Verge has a massive community, like just under 1 million people, supporters worldwide. And, I always, when I reach out, I always let people know, listen, we're just 1 million people out of a $7.7 billion or billion person world. So we're still not that large of a community. We may be large in our own minds, and we may be large in comparison to some other communities, but we're not large. And we have to treat everybody's opinion and everybody's comment and everybody's ideas the same. And we have to respect everyone's opinion, no matter who they are. They could be one day into our project as a supporter or 5 years, whether you're an OG or non-OG. I respect OGs, but that doesn't mean that the OG has a different beating heart than I do.
Exactly.
So, you know what I mean? So, I mean, David shoots from the hip. I mean, that guy, if you want a transparent guy that says what's on his mind as your CMO, you've picked the right guy. I mean, I have a lot of respect for David. And
I personally work very well with people who are like that, because I need to know how it is. I don't like people who beat around the bush and just want to be too politically correct when they're talking. Right. I just want you to tell. And David definitely is a guy that I can work very well with. So I'm happy he's here.
Yeah, he's pretty blunt. I mean,
well, yeah. And one thing that you were kind of mentioning on too is the whole thing of not looking down on any individual or any project. I feel like that's one thing that is improving drastically in the blockchain space.
Yeah.
But throughout that 2018, 2017 spell, I feel like it was extremely, like everyone was so defensive. It was too much. There's too much friction between communities. There's we're better. No, we're better. We can do this. Well, so can we. We got listed here. Where are you? And it was too much toxicity. When I saw on Twitter, there's a lot of different Twitter accounts and just how people act on there sometimes, and really toxic. And in an industry it's new. It's a new industry that can really branch out to any of the other industries to give them products or whatever to solve any problem that may exist. Blockchain is the one that could do it, at least right now, until something else replaces it, if that ever happens. But it was just too much toxic relationships I saw, and I feel like it's improving though.
I'll say this on the record, and in 2017 or 18, 19, a bit of a depressing market for the people that are trading or whatever they're doing. I don't know. For me, I just kept going. And we had meetings for the Verge team, and I said, guys, we just keep doing what we do. We're all volunteers. So if you're a trader, you're a trader, then don't be involved in this everyday stuff. But for a person like me, I just keep going and going and going. And it's like, I've always been taught from my mentors that if you can expand in the slowest part of the time, in the slowest time of market, if you can expand when it gets really busy, you've already expanded. So that's kind of how I've always been taught in business for business growth, is try to expand your business during the slowest months of the year.
Interesting.
And if you can expand your business during the slowest months out of the year, when it is busy, it's fruitful.
But I can agree with that.
And what I've learned in 2019 is this, and I'll say it on the record: the projects that are not willing to work with other projects, and the projects that think they're so good on their own, they're going to be on their own. And I strongly believe that if you're a project willing to work with other projects because they have this, that, and the other thing that could fit your project, or that project has this part of development. Listen, there's how many developers in the world? There's a lot of developers in the world, but 4% or 5% of those developers in the world are super developers. And we have the super developers in blockchain. Yeah. We're so fortunate enough that in the world, and we have some of the best developers in the world involved in blockchain. Those developers are always willing to develop and always willing to help out other aspects, because that's what developers do. They develop.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's the other part of these projects team, like the marketing team or the Twitter team or the social media team or the community. It's those people that are making it harder for the developers, because they're being egotistical, saying, we want to stick to our own, and you're a developer and you're just doing this and you're just doing that. Like, again, I'll go back to Verge. We have a developer, Marvin. He helps out the Digibyte project.
Oh yeah.
It's not my job to tell him to not help out another project. He's a developer.
Absolutely.
Let him develop, and let the communities. Are we pushing blockchain, or are we pushing our own name? I guess that's what it comes down to.
No, I fully agree. Our developer that's, helped us release the POS and the deterministic masternodes on our network when we had to make all these code changes when we did, his name's Barry, and he's actually been involved in so many different projects. And even still, the projects that he's worked on, he'll still do updates for. He's just passionate about whatever he touches. It's a creation that he's been involved in. He doesn't want to step away from them. And so, we've had questions like, oh, well, is he on this project? Is he on this project? Is he on this project? And, I'll ask him about it. And he'll just give me replies like, I'm not really technically part of really anything. I just, the things that I'm involved in, that's what I like to do. It's my passion. It's what I like to work on. And no one should rob anyone of their passion. Sometimes we'll get people that'll be almost criticizing that, like, oh, he's not working on just Pac or just this or just that. It's like, well, look, this is what his passion is. We're not going to limit what he wants to do. And because of that, it's actually opened up to the point of, I've already mentioned it, but, we have deterministic masternodes. We wouldn't have that if he didn't have the experience he has by working on these different, chains and knowing how these features work and how to implement them. That's how people learn, and it's how projects grow in reality.
Absolutely. Developers are always finding things to develop. And throughout their world, if they go and find something that they can use from another project, that as a developer, they're going to want to use that. That's not up to them to talk to the community. Yeah. They're developing. They're not forward-facing people, because that's not who they are as people. It's up to us as the forward-facing people to say, guys, we're here to move blockchain forward. When blockchain gets really big and 60-70% of people are using digital payments on the blockchain, now we can look at some of these projects and go, that's not needed, that's not needed, that's not needed, that's not needed. But for now, we're in it to win it. We've got to build together and again, these projects that think that their developers are only going to build for them and they're the best project in the world and they're the best thing for this or the best currency for this, it's like, you know what, then you're going to be in your own corner, and there's going to be nobody else in the other corner. So you're going to be fighting yourself.
I agree. I did have a question for you guys, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So my question has to do with we've been discussing just amongst our team members as far as how long we think, I don't know how to, I guess, correctly put this, but how long blockchain will be relevant as far as, will it be replaced by a better system or not? And the reason why we're talking about this is because, when you look at, I guess, maximum supplies of networks, it takes time for coins to be minted and things like that. And we were just looking at our chain and figuring out the numbers on it to see, okay, it'd be X amount of years until max supplies hit. And in our instance, it'd be roughly, 12 to 15 years based off of how our superblock is used. And so we were just thinking like, man, I wonder if in 12 to 15 years, is blockchain still going to be, I'm not going to say it's going to disappear, but are we going to have such good upgrades in 12 years? Because 12 years is a long time, that things could definitely change as far as how blockchain operates and the different projects that are in the top 10. I mean, if you look back to 2009 to now, what projects were up there that now just don't exist anymore, or they're just completely different. And so my question really is, how long do you think blockchain, or the other way I should put it is, do you think in the next 10 years, blockchain is going to be roughly the same? Or do you think it's going to be improved upon to where, it's different? It's a different, how it works and runs is different. I don't know, I guess, how else to put that question.
I think I would respond.
We'll just go over to Ross.
I think that's really fascinating. If you're talking about, blockchain for the use of data storage, I think obviously things are going to be vastly improved upon when it's strictly used for data, let's say for logistics and that sort of thing. It'll, to become the norm. But then what you're more referring to, more the financial side, once you hit max supply of tokens, that's going to be fascinating. Like, obviously, Bitcoin, we won't know because that'll be 2140.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the next 10 years, let's say Pac, hits a max supply, what happens? If it's fine tuned and it works great and you're at max supply, then what happens? The supply starts skyrocketing, or it continues to just become very, very stable at that point because you have enough people, keeping that value stable. It's not so volatile. That would be fantastic. But what would happen if you think that there's a need for more tokens to be created and you've hit the max supply? What do you do?
Exactly.
You start a new chain? I don't know how that'll play out.
Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions in how these different projects are going to tackle it. And then you got to think about projects like Bitcoin, where there is no one, there's no CEO of Bitcoin. There's no, project head that's going to make these decisions. The communities make that decision.
Yeah.
That's probably where a fork probably would occur, a hard fork where they're thinking, okay, we need more supply. So that's where Bitcoin Cash Part 2 comes out, or, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, it's just something we were thinking about because, as time goes on, especially what you mentioned, the data storage part of it, it's something that I've actually been obsessed with for the greater amount of a year, but I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to do it without bloating a blockchain, because blockchain itself is terrible when it comes to data storage, because each block, as far as I've seen, the normal is they can hold 1 MB of data or 2 MB of data, and it's very susceptible to spam attacks and bloating your chain and just illegal content. Anything could be stored on a blockchain. So I definitely agree with that a lot of upgrades are going to happen on that side of things. But yeah, the financial side, I have no clue. That's one thing that I've just always, I guess it's a wait and see kind of thing to see how things play out, how mass adoption plays out, if governments actually start supporting the use of actual cryptocurrency projects that are well decentralized, because it seems like that's what they use as their metrics of what is okay and what's not. When you look at Ethereum and Bitcoin, those that are considered not securities, because they're so decentralized and there's so many different users that you really can't shut it down. So they have to, at least accept it somewhat. Yeah. But it'd be interesting to see over the years how things change.
Yeah. I think the financial side of it, obviously that has a lot to do with politics. So that is going to be a tug of war. But when it comes to the data side of data, with data storage and blockchain, I was talking to a friend of mine, Addison. He's a lawyer in the blockchain industry based out of Toronto. We were talking about education, education platforms that are becoming really big compared to colleges. And, like, what is going to be dominant? Like, are the Udemy.coms going to take over? YouTube is an educational resource, but it's not really reliable. So with those sort of things and with data storage, I think these are going to go hand in hand over the next few years. I would love to see something, worked on an open source by a community for data storage, because technically, if you want to, have good data storage, you don't need blockchain. You just need a distributed network for security.
You need resources and distributed network.
Yeah, I think, that's not really being leveraged like it could be right now, because people are so focused on, releasing their own token, bringing in venture capitalists, and they're not really focusing on the technology side like they potentially could.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. What you said really is why we see so much potential in the data side of things. Because, like I said, and I could tout this, over and over again, we have 9,000 plus nodes, but what are they used? Like, what are they for? Is And currently up to this spot right now, I'm not afraid of admitting that the only thing that our nodes are used for is literally the same thing that Dash nodes are used for. The only difference is that Dash is extremely well known, and it's Dash. It's top 10 currency. People can use it. There's liquidity, things like that. We can't say all those things as a lower, newer project that's, growing still. And, our 9,000 nodes, they're not really being used for anything yet. So the data storage thing, well, they're being used, but they're being used for, like keeping full copies and just adding to the security of the payment side of it. But I think there's too many projects that are just focused on the payment side. So we wanted to add the data side to it. And so when we started looking at this and realizing that IPFS network is, in reality, it's just a database. That's all it is. It's a database, but it has a decentralized structure. And it's only as decentralized as how many nodes are spread apart. So if we have 9,000 plus nodes, that's 9,000 plus servers that have resources that can be dedicated to a storage bank, really. So if what I would like to see in the future of Pac is I would like to see that every server that is supporting the Pac Global network has, let's just say, 1 terabyte of data or 1 terabyte of storage available in the tank that can be put towards a storage bank or a database. So if you have 9,000 plus servers, or let's just say 10,000 to make it a round even number, the amount of available space you need to make a large database per server doesn't have to be a lot, because you have so many servers, it can be less resources per individual. And that's a lot easier for anyone to obtain. If I wanted to create a 2,000 terabyte large database by myself, it's going to be expensive, first of all, for me to do that. I'd have to find the resources that are dedicated that I can do that. And even after doing all that, I'm the only person doing it. It's so centralized. If I decide I want to shut it down, to click of a button, everything's gone. And that's kind of like what we compare a lot of the products that are out there that have done that. They've clicked a button or they've sold out. And what happened to your data? One thing that that affected a lot of this was the social media of Vine. Vine was pretty popular for a while, and then it disappeared because of whatever happened, whether they sold it or whatever, I don't know. But it disappeared. So all their content, all that data just gone. So, that's a problem, because not only that, but what happens, God forbid, but what happens if someone passes away and all their data, and someone doesn't have their passwords to their stuff? Where does it go? Well, certain server providers, not 60, 90 days, they delete it because they're not going to they have no reason to keep it. So those are just little things that they can be improved on, because, people need to have access to their data. They need to own it. And that matters, because what happens to it when you're not around, or what happens to it when, the people who are in charge of that service decide that they want to sell out or they want to move on to something else. It just goes away. And it needs to be okay that, you're comfortable putting your information or whatever. It doesn't always have to be private. Not everything has to be private, but just anything that you decide that you want to share on the internet or a social network or whatever, that you fully have access to it and it's yours and it's there forever. And that can be for personal, or that can be, used towards, just the internet itself, backing up a website or the content that someone puts on YouTube. Where is that information being stored? Is it being stored on a centralized database somewhere? Or what I would like to see in Pac is if every single server was large enough, the database for Pac Global and storage could be massive, absolutely massive. It all depends on what server the individual wants to support it with. So if each server was supported by a terabyte of data, I mean, that's a lot of storage that would be available over 10,000 plus servers, So that's really the future vision I see for us. Obviously we would grow and maybe change some things to make it a little easier to use and just make more sense as ideas present themselves. But that's kind of like, where I hope to see things, because that's really the number one, I guess, trying to think of the word to say for it, but that's where we want to go.
Well, you look at even data like lottery. You look at a use case like that where you're keeping every person in the country that goes and buys what is it that down in the US, a Powerball? How many
Yep.
millions and millions and millions of Powerball tickets get bought every day? And if you look at, that kind of a data and look at the statistics they can run off of blockchain just by having all of that on a server, it's
Yep.
massive.
Foolproof, audited, everything. Like
Yeah.
it's.
So right now they're spending, and then when you look into a good example, like a land-based casino, when you win a jackpot, um, they call in the machine maker, whatever it is, maybe IGT, you win a jackpot on an IGT machine. They actually call in IGT to come down and validate the win on their own machine. So you're waiting there for 2-3 hours on your lottery, on your win, while IGT is getting flown in, or wherever the rep is, right? They've got to get flown in, and they got to validate their own win on their own machine. And then they go and tell the casino, yeah, go ahead and pay it out.
Wow.
This stuff could all be blockchain. So as far as validation stuff goes,
It's instant.
Imagine the time and the labor and the cash that we save by deploying blockchain, right, for these validations.
That's true. Yeah, it'd be instant. Blockchain doesn't lie. Whatever has happened, whatever's recorded, it's recorded. You can't change it.
Yeah. Or you look at lottery pools. When people go and buy into lottery pools, and it's like 20 of them sharing one lottery ticket. There's so many lawsuits and stuff over that. It's like some guy, well, I got into this verbally, but if you have even lottery pools on the blockchain, it's instant validation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just signed off, right?
That's very true.
Yeah. No, I like where you're going as far as the database stuff goes for Pac for sure. I think.
Imagine if the data storage, it was just the standard. People say, no, I need my data encrypted on a blockchain. And like the system you guys have with a Masternode, you have, a proof of stake wallet address that is secured to the network, and that is your key to putting new data into the system. Without that, you're not verified, you're not allowed to contribute to the data. Something like that would be so powerful.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So what's next for Pac Global in 2020? How have things been with the delays of COVID changing, everything that you're working on, and what are you looking at for the rest of the year?
As far as delays with COVID, I mean, since a lot of the things that we work on, and like I said, I work from home, it hasn't really been hasn't affected too much as far as our workflow. Mm-hmm. What it has affected though, on what it's affected our decision making on when we think timing is good and when we think timing is not good. When it comes to like marketing, or if we want to get on a certain exchange, is this the right time because the market conditions aren't that good because of COVID? Because a lot of people are, having such terrible financial problems because of all this, and it's super unfortunate. But we also have to take that in consideration when it comes to business ventures and the ideas that we want to put forward. Are there people that are even willing or able to follow this right now? So it's delayed a couple things. As far as our development though, it's actually increased our speed because we've been able to have more time together and more time to just mash on ideas and get things out. And so, just the business side of it's probably delayed a little bit. I'm not going to lie on that, but development, we've done a lot more, I think. And I think that's been noticed within our community, just ideas that weren't on our roadmap that are now popping up, like IPFS, all of this I've been talking about. In truth, a lot of our community probably doesn't know a lot of it because this is something that wasn't on our roadmap. We've talked about it here and there, giving our ideas and what we're trying to work on, but it definitely wasn't on our initial roadmap. It's something that we actually just figured out was the best solution for data storage, and we've now been mashing on that this year. So we plan on releasing that this year. It will be released this year. And that's really going to be the first stepping stone for us as far as adding different use cases and supporting different networks on top of Pac Global. So that's what I find super interesting, that we can do that, use our basically loan out our network to different use cases, because that's one thing that was really screwing us up, and that just comes with experience and just really my mistake in just the beginning of it is thinking, there's all these different use cases. We need to develop them and we need to add them to our chain and we need to do this, we need to do that. That was a mistake in my part because you don't need to do all this heavy lifting development just to support a use case. If Pac Global doesn't do something that, let's say, Verge does, that doesn't mean that Pac Global can't support that use case. It can still have, we don't have to actually physically develop it, do a hard code change just to support what they do. Right. We can use our network to support what they do, or any other just projects that we feel that, that it makes sense to, add on to our network. And so we figured that out, and that happened because, we had more time to work together.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't you love when you have a roadmap and you can actually sneak something in that's extra?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So no, I'm like, it's a very interesting project for sure. And you guys are, you with your marketplace coming out and stuff like that, like you guys are how many developers do you guys have on your team then that are helping?
Full-time developers, I'd say 4. We have four full-time developers, all different to their own. So we have one that's specific for UI and UX, front-end developing, and then we have 3. Well, we have one that's our lead blockchain developer, Barry, the one that's been involved just in blockchain for many years. And then we have 2 that are, they're full stack developers, but new to blockchain. But combined, their skill sets work perfectly fine. So we've been able to, work together very well.
No, that's a good amount of developers for sure. I mean, I think to have 4 developers full time, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that we, that's all we focused on for the greater amount the last year. And that we kind of realized we needed to change that if we wanted certain things to improve, whether that's our markets or market action, or whether it's just community interaction or growing it, is that we needed to focus, not putting all our money and effort into development, but we needed to transition that over to marketing and branding. And that's where David and, Sam and Oz come in, that's where they do best, connecting people and educating people. That's a whole nother side to the business that I feel like a lot of people or a lot of projects probably don't recognize is extremely important. I mean, in regular business worlds, over 75% of a monthly budget goes towards marketing and budget and marketing and branding, and we were completely avoiding that because we weren't really focused on that. When people were talking about price, we never really responded because for us, it was like, well, we're not even talking about that right now. We're in the development stage. And now we're finally comfortable enough to say, okay, our chain is good. It's secure. We're happy with its features. We're going to develop on top of it. But in the meantime, we need to start growing our community and our interaction. And so that's where, David and Sam have done such a good job of just, connecting people and the different projects. I know David's come to me many times and, said, hey, I'm talking to this, this group of people about, and Pac just came up. And that's what I like about him is he's not a shiller. It's not just like stuff it down your throat because I support this, this project. He's really a very good, just able to talk to people, and it's just educational. And it's both ways. It's not just a one-way highway with him. He's there to learn about what other project and then, talk about things that we do and vice versa. So it's been a good ride.
With David, it's probably, I can see where people, when he tweets that they may call him a shiller, but if they're not taking the time to understand who David is, that's on them. That's not on him.
Yeah.
He's comfortable with who he is as a person, and the people that take the time to have a conversation with him and to learn who that real David is and what he believes in, if they take the time to do that, they're going to understand them a little bit more. If they choose not to take the time to understand them, that's not on him. That's on them.
Yeah.
And it's like the same with anybody, especially in crypto Twitter. If we don't like what somebody's saying on crypto Twitter, take the time to understand who they are as a person rather than just lashing out at them and saying, you're this person. If you're not going to take the time to understand a person, it's not on them. It's on you. So
yeah, and a lot of things that get typed or texted get misinterpreted. It's how you read it in your head. It's that whole tough guy keyboard kind of thing.
We're always going to have pitcher catcher, like developer marketing. And David and I come from the same industry, so